I will be taking Dark Magician to YCS Niagara Falls. We have until October 2024 to prepare for this event. In this video, I'll be going over a Dark Magician list that Chat and I crafted during our last live stream. We took this very interesting list to a locals along with a World Championship Celebration event where we were playing for a QCR Swords of Revealing Light and a Doom Caliber Knight. In that World Championship Celebration event, we fell just short of winning the 2 prize cards with an X1 record where our only loss was to Fiendsmith Yubel. We did, however, not leave empty-handed with an X1 record. We did walk away with a few prize packs. In addition to this, we were lucky enough to win the raffle and get the 2 prize cards anyways. I won't be opening this in this video, but maybe down the line if we reach a subscriber goal, I will open it one day, or I'll probably keep it sealed for the time being. As I'm opening the winnings from our last 2 events, I did pull a quarter century rare Illusion of Chaos. I will be giving away this card over to one of you lucky winners. All you need to do is in the description below, there is my Twitter. It's a newly found Twitter where pretty much I can engage with you outside of YouTube, which I think it will be very helpful for not only me, but for also my viewers. All you need to do is follow me on that YouTube channel and I will be giving away the Illusion of Chaos to one lucky winner. A quick disclaimer is that this list I'm showcasing in this video is not card for card the lists I've taken to the last 2 events. Although I've seen some success at these last 2 events, it goes without question that the lessons I've learned help me optimize the list for going forward, and I feel like the list I'm showcasing now is the current best way to play this variant of Dark Magician. We start off the deck profile with the obvious Dark Magician bricks in question. We play the 1 copy of Dark Magician and 1 copy of Dark Magician Girl. In my last deck profile, I was playing Palladium Oracle Mahad, and you still can use Palladium Oracle Mahad to facilitate your draw 2 and the maximum value of Soul Servant. However, Dark Magician Girl does have her niches in this list, and I felt like I was utilizing her a lot more than I was using Mahad in my previous list, and therefore the switch was relatively justified. We can go into more depth as to why we play Dark Magician Girl later on the deck profile. However, for the time being, this is all you relatively need. And for people who are saying, Matchy, what if the 1 copy of Dark Magician does get banished? There are ways in the deck where the deck can continue to play after the Dark Magician is already banished. In addition to this, there are variations to recycle Dark Magician from the banished pile if need be. The Dark Magician monster count revolves around the same usual suspects. We play 3 copies of Magician Souls. Magician Souls is so far and away one of the most important cards in this list, as its pitch 2 to draw 2 effect starts and generates you all your advantage, but not only that, it starts all the combos this deck wants to do. In addition, we follow it up with the 2 copies of Magician's Rod. Magician's Rod grabbing you access to Soul Servant and other Dark Magician spell and traps to help you facilitate and build the better game state for yourself is also very important in this particular list. We play 2 and not 3 simply for the fact that if you open 2 of Magician's Rod, it feels really miserable, and there are in-archetype ways to search this card out. We then follow up the Dark Magician count with 1 copy of Timaeus the United Dragon, as this is the only in-archetype way to make Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, which is a very important boss monster and applies unbelievable amounts of pressure to your opponent. In addition to making Dragoon, Timaeus is actually a very important extender if you do need an extender to follow up and build your end board. Timaeus, although is a brick at times, even if you don't use him to fuse, like I said, using him as an extender is actually very important for some of the lines this list can produce. After praising Magician Souls and saying it is the best card in the deck and the most important card in the deck, which is true, however, no card is as important in this list as Illusion of Chaos. So we play 3 copies of Illusion of Chaos, and in addition to this, we play 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. Now, immediately, I know what you're thinking, and you are thinking, Matchy, this is absolute overkill, to which I would say normally you are correct. However, the way this deck functions, this deck is strictly made up of 2 card combos, and Illusion of Chaos being able to access the other half of the combo is so vital. I will go down later on the list and explain why 6 copies of Illusion of Chaos is important, but essentially what this means is that you're playing 9 copies of Magician Souls, 8 copies of Magician's Rod, 7 copies of Timaeus, Dark Magician, and Dark Magician Girl. When you see Illusion of Chaos and any other engine that you want to facilitate and generate your advantage from in this particular list, seeing 6 copies of Illusion of Chaos is essential, and it's vital to essentially make sure that your combo does resolve. There are reasons for 6 copies of Illusion of Chaos, and I will get into why the math works later on in the deck profile. For a long time on this channel, I always preached that 2 copies of Soul Servant and 1 copy of Secrets of Dark Magic was all you really needed to facilitate everything you needed that Dark Magician wanted to do. Normally that's true, and in this case it's no different. However, for the last few weeks, I have been experimenting with a card like Bond Between Teacher and Student. Now immediately when you see this card, you immediately think, okay Machi, where is Dark Burning Magic Attack? Well, we are not playing Dark Burning Attack simply for the reason that I don't find the value there. Essentially, this card is really good as a board wipe. However, in most cases, you are not ending with Dark Magician Girl on the board. So this card is usually dead. However, Bond Between Teacher and Student being able to be utilized as an extender if needed. In addition, Bonds automatically makes your Soul Servants a draw 2 is very strong. There are lines in this particular list that get you access to Bonds fairly consistently. In addition to this, what Bonds does is it sets up Dark Magician Girl and Dark Magician on the board to pretty much generate as much advantage as you possibly need. For that reason, we are teching in the 1 copy of Bond Between Teacher and Student. If you are building this list at home, you can absolutely play the Dark Burning Magic. It's not a hindrance. It's very strong. It does have some application. Throughout testing, it has come up. I just didn't deem it consistent enough and far too bricky. Opening Bond Between Teacher and Student is far better than opening Dark Burning Magic. And for that reason alone, we just opted to cut the brick. If you are building this list at home and you do want to implement it, you absolutely can. However, for the time being, these are just the Dark Magician spell and trap cards that we are playing for this list. In my last video, I preached that pure Dark Magician is just not good enough, so we are forced to splash engines in the list. The first engine in question is your Toy Box engine, which we do play 3 copies of Toy Box, 1 copy of Toy Tank and Toy Soldier, and then I deemed the best light targets for the Toy Box engine to grab you is your 1 copy of Blazing Cartesia and 1 copy of Quem the Virtuous. So what these cards essentially do is this pretty much generates all the advantage you want, as well as Magician Souls and Toy Box generates you the strongest board that this deck can possibly make. So seeing these cards, specifically Toy Box, in your hand is insanely mandatory. The beautiful thing about the light package in this situation, which is Blazing Cartesia and Quem the Virtuous, is that these 2 cards are fantastic normal summons if you do see them. So they're not really bricks in this situation. They are very strong cards, and what I wanted to do was maximize what these so-called garnets, how much they can accomplish. So in this situation, like normally the light targets you would search off Toy Soldier or the Toy Box engine wouldn't be very strong. So having 2 cards that do facilitate and can generate some sort of advantage on their own is very important. Now, of course, opening Toy Soldier and Toy Tank aren't optimal. However, there are ways to play with them by setting them and sending them to the graveyard with other cards in this particular list. A secondary engine that we are playing in this particular list is your 3 copies of Shining Sarcophagus, your 2 copies of Dark Magician, the Magician of Black Magic, and your 1 copy of Gandora G, the Dragon of Destruction. Normally, I would sit here and say, guys, don't play this in Dark Magician, play this in a pure Shining Sarcophagus variant. However, there are a lot of interesting applications this engine particularly does for the deck. 1, it can make Dragoon and Hope Harbinger just off opening Shining Sarcophagus and any one of these 3 cards. This is the Yassine combo that he's recently brought to light. However, in addition to this, what these cards do is apply a lot of pressure to your opponent. They act as board breakers. In addition to this, they help you facilitate a board by themselves. One reason for this is that this engine does bring you access to a card like Bond Between Teacher and Student, which can bring you Dark Magician Girl, and is one of the reasons why we play Bond Between Teacher and Student. Bond Between Teacher and Student sets up Dark Magician Girl along with an access to Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, which can push your plays forward, and it's very interesting in that regard. More importantly, everything this engine can offer by itself, more importantly, Shining Sarcophagus pretty much grants you access to a free Dark Magician, which means this card is also like a pseudo Magician Souls, essentially giving you more and more copies of Magician Souls to help you push your game state forward. Seeing Shining Sarcophagus and Soul Servant, for example, grabs you access to your entire Dark Magician engine, which can generate your plays like that as well. What these cards offer more than anything is that this card is Dark Magician on field, which is really strong and has unbelievable applications within the list. When I brought up the idea of playing these two engines together on stream, myself and a lot of my viewers immediately shut down the idea, rightfully so. These two engines have zero synergy with each other. However, upon further theory crafting, we optimized that these two engines, although they don't work together, they increase the amount of times we can see a particular engine in our opening hand. Remember, these two engines essentially rely on seeing toy box. If, for example, the toy box variant, we rely on seeing toy box in our hand. In the Shining Sarcophagus variant, we rely on seeing Shining Sarcophagus. Now, what these two engines offer are two completely different play styles, which is very unorthodox in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because your deck predominantly wants to follow a certain type of play style. However, this is the reason why we play 3 copies of Preparation of Rites and 3 copies of Illusion of Chaos. Rather than relying on opening one of Toy Box in our 40 card deck or one of the 3 Shining Sarcophaguses in our 40 card deck, we pretty much rely on opening one of these 6 cards along with the 6 copies of Illusion of Chaos or the cards we are grabbing off Illusion of Chaos to facilitate our combo. This immediately makes our 2-card combo infinitely more accessible. Yes, it does force the deck in a different path depending on what card you see. However, this does have some advantages. Although we play a larger amount of garnets, which isn't great. However, some of those garnets are relatively useful. For example, Quem and Cartesia in the Toy Box variant, not so much in the Shining Sarcophagus variant. However, what this allows us to do is keep our opponent guessing. Game 2, Game 3, or in a best of 3 for Yu-Gi-Oh matches, specifically in large format events, what these cards do is sometimes your opponent is not prepared for one or the other. If you see Toy Box in Game 1 but see Shining Sarcophagus in Game 2, it can really throw them off guard, both having different applications to what your deck wants to do. Like I said prior, this is very unorthodox for the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cramming this many engines into one deck. However, what these cards can generate on their own in combination with Illusion of Chaos is just really strong, and it pretty much facilitates everything that Dark Magician wants to do and helps it do it significantly better. Prior to the Appaloosa ban, essentially the Toy Box variant was essentially Magician Souls, and Toy Box got you access into Appaloosa, SP Little Knight, and or Awinda, or depending on what your board pretty much wanted to end on. That's kind of the route that we wanted to go into. Since Appaloosa's banning, we had to get very creative with this particular list. Shout out Kageyami for bringing to light this idea, specifically this engine that I was able to take, and I think we were able to raise the ceiling of this deck significantly. We play the 1 copy of Branded Regain along with the 1 copy of Bestial Saronir. In addition to this, we play the 1 Bestial Lubellion. What these 3 cards essentially do is set up a Branded Regain mid combo to essentially give you another spell for Celine if you don't see it. In addition to this, what these 3 cards allow you to do is make a Bestial Dispatter mid combo to help progress your game state further. In addition to this, Bestial Dispatter stops any and all other interruptions if your opponent does have them at that point in the combo. There are reasons for Bestial Dispatter and why it's so important, but essentially it provides you another interruption after you've already established the board. This is just a quick combo as to how the Magician Souls and Toy Box stuff works with the Bestial package. We start by activating Magician Souls, sending our copy of Dark Magician from the deck. We then activate Toy Box, setting both our copy of Toy Soldier and our Toy Tank from our deck to our Spell and Trap Guard zone. Magician Souls activates its effect, sending both of these 2 toy cards to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. Here we go Chainlink 1 Toy Soldier, Chainlink 2 Toy Tank, summoning both to the field, and then Toy Soldier activates its effect, searching your Guiding Quem. Guiding Quem, you then normal summon your Guiding Quem, activating Guiding Quem's effect, sending your Cartesia to the graveyard. Magician Souls then gets linked off into a copy of Artemis, which then does Guiding Quem activates its effect, summoning back your Blazing Cartesia. Here we then link off our Artemis and our Toy Soldier into a Cross Sheep, which then we activate Cross Sheep's effect. We then fuse off our Blazing Cartesia and our Guiding Quem. If we had a monster in hand, obviously we'd like to use the monster in hand to make a Grand Guignol. Here we go Chainlink 1 Grand Guignol, Chainlink 2 Cross Sheep to revive your Guiding Quem or Cartesia. It doesn't matter in this situation. Grand Guignol then sends your Bestial Saronir from the deck to the graveyard. When Bestial Saronir hits the graveyard, we then send your Bestial Lubellion to the graveyard. Toy Tank activates its effect to send to itself to the graveyard to special summon your Bestial Saronir, and here you can kind of see where we start generating our advantage. Quem and Saronir does activate its effect to not activate its effect. Quem and Bestial Saronir synchro off into your Bestial Dispatter, which then we do have a negate in this situation if we wish to use it. If we don't, we can just tribute it for a Bestial Lubellion, summoning Bestial Lubellion to the field. Lubellion will activate its effect, placing your branded regain. And essentially what this board does is it plays through a card like Nibiru, for example, because if your opponent does end up Nibiruing you, what you can do is with branded regain on the board, on your opponent's turn, once they summon a monster, you can just bring back your Bestial Dispatter as an interruption. These 3 cards are incredible in the list, so thank you Kageyami for inspiring me to utilize these cards to their maximum. Rounding off the deck, we are playing the very important non-engine. In this particular list, we are playing 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. Forbidden Droplet and a card like Toy Box is unbelievable, as these 2 cards pretty much can break a board and generate your own board by themselves. Forbidden Droplet is a must and absolutely mandatory in any variation of Toy Box. In addition to this, we do play, I think, the best hand trap in the game, which is your 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird stops so many decks, and it's the card that is seeing a massive resurgence in the list. In addition to this, Droll and Lockbird is the one card in this particular, is the one hand trap that can end our turn outright. And because Droll and Lockbird does pretty much end our turn, we are playing one of the most important cards in the deck, which is 3 copies of Crossout Designator. This does round off the deck, and the reason why we are playing 3 copies of Crossout Designator along with the 3 copies of Droll rather than Crossout and a multitude of hand traps, we do play a few hand traps in the side deck that Crossout can stop that will hinder us. However, what I wanted to do was I want to maximize Crossout Designator for ourselves and utilize Crossout Designator as an extender if we don't get drolled. Crossout's main purpose is to stop the only card in the game right now that could pretty much end our turn outright, which is Droll and Lockbird. But if our opponent does not have the Droll and Lockbird, utilizing Crossout Designator as an extender is very, very important and is a very spicy tech for a list like this. Like I said, this is Dark Magician, so we need to make sure that we utilize every card, even if it's quote-unquote dead in our hand. Circling back to the game state we were in when I was showcasing how the Bestial Saronir and the Bestial Lubellion do have utilization within the Toy Box combo, I just want to showcase quickly how Crossout Designator can be used as an extender in this situation. Assuming we have the exact same game state we were in and our opponent does not droll us, we can use Crossout Designator as an extender. We can activate Toy's Tank, pretty much sending it to the graveyard to special summon our Bestial Saronir. We do have a Bestial Dispatter line here, so what we can do is we can activate Crossout Designator. We can declare any card's name if you do have a target. In this case, we will declare Timaeus the United Dragon. Now what we can do is, even though Timaeus is negated, we can utilize it as an extra body. So what we will do is we will synchro off our Bestial Saronir and our Guiding Quem to special summon this Bestial Dispatter. We can activate Bestial Dispatter's effect, summoning back your Timaeus the United Dragon from the banished zone. What we can do here is then we can tribute off our Bestial Dispatter into our Bestial Lubellion, and then Lubellion will activate its effect, pretty much placing our branded regain from the deck to the spell and trap guard zone. Like prior, we can just go into an SP, however, we do have 2 level 8 bodies on board in this case, so what we can do is we can end on a little bit more. We can link those 2 cards off into an SP Little Knight, and then what we can follow up with is simply overlaying our 2 level 8 monsters into the number 97 Dragulon, and then we can detach our Granguignol to essentially summon back a Hope Harbinger. Now what this essentially allows us to do is now we have a spell negate in addition to our Bestial Dispatter coming back when our opponent does summon a monster via branded regain. If our opponent does have nib here and we don't have the nib and we utilize our crossout, that's fine. Our opponent can nib us here. We just SP effect targeting itself and Hope Harbinger to pretty much banish both and then get them back in the on the end phase. In addition to this, branded regain is a fantastic card that does play around Nibiru and any further interruptions, because on our opponent's turn we can just get back our Bestial Dispatter once they do summon a monster. One last point before entering the conversation of the extra deck, I am very aware of the potential of bricks in this particular list. That's just the nature of playing the deck with multiple engines. We do go over a 40 card deck count, which essentially means that we try to see the one-off bricks and the one-off garnets a little less in our hand. Unfortunately, that's sometimes not avoidable. The point of this deck is to increase the deck ceiling as high as possible. That's bricks included. There are situations and ways we can play through and around the bricks. For example, Illusion of Chaos, putting them back and or using them as materials if it does come to it. This is a problem that I have noticed and I will be trying to resolve it in the future. However, for the time being, the amount of gas this deck provides does warrant playing the extra bricks, and it is what it is when you're playing a rogue deck like Dark Magician. Moving on to the extra deck, we do play one copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is essentially your Dark Magician boss monster. In addition to this, we do play the one copy of the Dark Magicians. The reason for this is that it has unbelievable synergy with Shining Sarcophagus. If you do see it, as this card in Shining Sarcophagus pretty much generates you unbelievable amounts of advantage. We then play the one copy of Granguignol the Dust Dragon, which is essential for the toy box combo. In addition to this, Granguignol is fantastic to fuse with your Cartesia, or fuse off using your Cartesia, as it generates you a lot of advantage that way. We then follow up with Bestial Dispatter. Like I said, the Bestial package is unbelievable in this list, as Bestial Dispatter is pretty much free mid toy box combo. The amount of pressure this thing applies, along with being a very solid end board piece, is really, really strong. In addition, Bestial Dispatter does help you play through Nibiru, which is really, really important. We then follow it up with the number 97 Dragulon. In addition, number 100 Numeron Dragon, and your 90 number 38 Hope Harbinger. This is pretty much the Yassine combo. These cards are very, 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 very good, specifically with toy box. If you do opt to cut the toy box cards, you can cut all three of these, as they aren't really used for any other reason outside of the toy box cards. We follow up the last Xyz monster with Daigusto Emerald. Daigusto Emerald is insanely important for the final combo, as it helps you revive Dark Magician. In addition to this, the Daigusto pretty much is a free level 4 you can make off Toy Box, Toy Soldier, Quem, and Cartesia, which does progress your game state forward. Probably the most important link in the deck, which is your Artemis. Artemis is essential in this list. It's non-negotiable to not have her, as using the toy box variant, she pretty much allows you to trigger Quem, which is very, very important. Dark the Dark Charmer is our second link, as this card helps you go into the Access Co-line. It's also great in the grind game. You don't really make him on your first turn. We follow it up with the Cross Sheep. Cross Sheep is another essential piece for the toy box combo. Cross Sheep essentially allows you to generate any and all other resources, in addition setting up your board for the rank 4 plays, along with linking it off into Selene and progressing your final combos that way. We then follow it up with SP Little Knight, which is another end board piece. Very important. It's not as mandatory. The more mandatory aspect of it is that you need 2 arrows pointing left and right. However, SP is fantastic as an interruption. If you do get interrupted 3 or 4 times and you just end on an SP, SP is very, very strong in that regard. We then follow it up with the Selene. Selene is a crazy card. Pretty much it's a monster reborn for any spellcaster. And then we play the one access code, and this doesn't need too much explaining, but the card that we ended up cooking with on stream, the card that breaks this deck, is the one Nightmare Griffin. Nightmare Griffin pretty much replaced Appaloosa, but the idea of the Magician Souls and Toy Box gets you to a Griffin and an SP Little Knight. Pretty much you're floodgating your opponent with Nightmare Griffin and then setting a massive board around it, which is insane. Nightmare Griffin is a game changer. It's the reason why I won so many of my games in this last event, along with the locals leading up to it. Nightmare Griffin is game changing. It's an unbelievable floodgate. It auto wins the Brandon matchup. It auto wins the Ubel matchup. The only time this card did lose out to was a card like copy of Forbidden Droplet, which is, is what it is. In addition, it can lose out to Dark Ruler No More. However, like I said, you have like a Bestial Dispatter and other cards to pretty much help you play around cards like Dark Ruler No More. So if you build this end board, you do have another follow-up piece that helps you break, that helps your end board pretty much become unbreakable. So that's it for the deck profile. I just want to quickly thank you for watching. This deck is incredibly complicated. However, what I will say this is it's a very fun deck. It's very complicated to play, and because of the complexity of it, I will be releasing a combo video along with a test hand video going over all the specific lines that the deck can pretty much generate and how to play this deck correctly. For the time being, I want to thank you so much for watching and have yourself an amazing day. Bye.